Hello everybody, this is Lara with your daily Monday to Friday analysis of Bitcoin and XRP. I'm going to do Ethereum and Solana as well for you, and Jack will have another video for you tomorrow. It's time to take a step back and keep our eyes on the bigger picture again. From the low of November 2022, there is a series of higher highs up to the last all-time high, which was the week beginning 10th of March at 73,802.64, and this series of higher lows. This is the last higher low in that pattern of higher highs and highest lows. This is the last higher low prior to the highest high. So in order for that pattern to be broken, we need to see a new low below 38,512.34. And despite some strong downward movement today, its price is well above that point. I'm adding this channel onto the weekly chart. I've drawn it from this high to this high with a copy on this low and this low. Price is right at support. If that trend line provides support, then this should be the end of downward movement. Price is finding support about 55,000. There's a little bit of support below 51,800. There was very strong volume pushing price higher up to the last high. There is a little bit of an increase in volume with downward movement, and price is starting to behave with exponential growth to the downside. It's got a nice curved downward look, but volume is still a lot lighter than previous upward volume. And importantly, back in here, we saw some really good instances of exponential growth. Now, I don't think that the market's changed from bull to bear, and if you want to be very bearish on Bitcoin, you need to have this trend line broken, and you really would need to have a new low below 38,512.34 to be particularly bearish for Bitcoin. At this time frame, this multi-week consolidation or pullback, if that's what it is, within an ongoing larger bull market, and I still expect that's what it is, it's managed to pull ADX down from very extreme back down below 45, so below very extreme territory. So the market has set itself up for the next bullish run, if the bullish run is indeed going to continue as I expect it is. This is a normal, healthy, to be expected part of a bullish run, and when price is at support in a pullback or consolidation within a bull market, that's when everyone gets really bearish and expects price to continue on lower. Now, I could be wrong, I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again, but on balance of probability, I do still expect this is a pullback within an ongoing bull market and not necessarily the early stages of a big bear market for Bitcoin. There was no bearish divergence at the highs, and RSI had only spent a little bit of time relatively in overbought conditions. This consolidation and pullback has now pulled RSI right down into neutral. Plenty of room again for the next bullish run to develop. It's pulled money flow also right down into neutral. There was no bearish divergence at the highs either for money flow. ATR is declining as price moves lower, so there's not a lot of strength. There's a little bit of a push from volume now. There's no increase in volatility. If this is the start of a bear market, I would have expected to see some increase in ATR as a measurement of volatility. Looking at the daily, I've got this big rectangle we've been following for weeks now, for months actually. Early on in the rectangle, original support was 60,700. Price broke below that, looked like a downward breakout, but that turned out to be false because within 2 days, price was back within the rectangle. So we had to extend the zone, and I extended it down to the open and the close here, down to 58,200. But I have been saying for a few days we could extend it down to the low, and that's what I'm going to do today. I want to be really conservative about this rectangle, so let's extend it down to the low at 56,500. That's now possibly going to provide resistance. The current session for the 5th of July is not complete. If it closes below support at 56,500, then look for resistance there. Then we would again have a close below the lower edge, the most conservative lower edge of the rectangle. That could be a downward breakout. But I keep saying rectangles are plagued by numerous false breakouts in both directions. That's really common for this pattern. So you have to be really careful. Because we had a false breakout here, I'm going to institute a 2 or 3 day away rule. I want to see 2 days or 3 days, depending on the strength. If it's strong, just 2, or maybe even 1 if it's really strong. 1, 2 or 3 days, depending on the strength of downward movement away from resistance at 56,500 before I have confidence that this is indeed a downward breakout from the rectangle. If we do get that, then a target from the rectangle would be 39,500, taking the full width of the rectangle and adding that to the breakout point, and that's not too conservative conservative a target. If the target's wrong, it might be a little bit low, but 39,500 would be my target for the rectangle. There's a little bit of push from volume, pushing price lower for the last completed downward session, but it's not as strong as previous downward sessions. So volume is still flattening off. Here's the average line, decline throughout the rectangle, pretty much flat at the moment, not really a big increase. If this is the start of the early stages of a bear market, I would be expecting to see an increase in volume imminently. The last signal given from on-balance volume was bearish, so that tells us to expect a break below the lower edge of the rectangle. That's what we're getting today. So the result of that bearish signal may well now be complete. ADX is telling us still that there is a downward trend, it's not extreme. RSI is just dipping into oversold. Now there could be some bullish divergence developing, but like I said in my last video, I want to see a pivot develop. Price needs to close and then have an upward session, and RSI needs to develop a pivot. Here's a pivot, here's a pivot, another pivot, little peak to the downside would be a pivot on RSI and a corresponding pivot on price. If the pivot on price is lower on a closing basis and the pivot on RSI is higher from this point back here, then we'd have some bullish divergence. It's premature to expect that you can see bullish divergence here. I haven't seen this technique in any textbook, but this is a methodology I've developed myself over the years because I have seen too many times what you want to read as bullish or bearish divergence simply disappear. Just turns out to be of no predictive value at all. If you wait for the pivots to develop and then you look for your divergence, that seems to filter out those times when it just disappears and isn't very useful. In fact, it can be leading you astray. So it could just disappear. Price could continue lower, but I've told you really clearly what to look for. One really strong downward session for the 6th of July or the 6th and 7th, just continuing on down. Then if we have then we can have confidence in a downward breakout, look for the divergence to just disappear and use a target of 39,900. But if the 6th of July moves up back into the rectangle, it's another false breakout. We may have a pivot, and if we do have bullish divergence develop, then I would have quite a lot of confidence that we've finally found a low for this consolidation pullback for Bitcoin. So that's what I want to see. So the 6th and 7th of July are going to be really important. ATR is overall flat as price is moving lower. There's just a little bit of strength in volume, no strength in increasing volatility. Today, maybe a little bit. Now, if this is the start of a big bear market, I'd expect ATR to show an increase imminently and volume to start to really push price lower. We're not seeing that yet, and price is only just moving below that rectangle. I think it's just too early to get really bearish here, and in fact, we do tend to get very bearish when price finds a low. That's the psychology of markets. So keep calm. So far, it's probably just another false downward breakout. I've told you what to look for, but let's watch and see what happens tomorrow. Ethereum is also moving lower with some strength. Look out for next support at 2720. Effectively, it also remains within a big consolidation. We probably could draw a big rectangle around this one as well. But look for next support at 2720. So far for the session of 5th of July, it might be developing a bullish long lower wick. Now, downward movement for Bitcoin and Ethereum does tend to end with quite a lot of strength. We saw a couple of really strong downward sessions here, consolidation, and then some strong upward sessions. The strongest movement within Ethereum has been for the 20th of May. That was a very strong upward session, a huge bullish candlestick with huge push from volume. I expect that's telling us that the strongest movement is to the upside, which tells us the larger trend still probably remains up. And when you look at it at the higher time frames, it is in a bull market, just like Bitcoin. A little bit of volume pushing price lower. Downward movement does tend to end with strong volume here, here, here. It ends with increasing volume. So increasing volume could mean we're in the middle of the downward movement and there's another downward session to go. It could also mean we're at the end. It's impossible to tell which of those two scenarios is playing out, but all we can say is it doesn't necessarily mean this is a bear market, because within its consolidations and pullbacks in a bull market, it will end those downward movements with strength and form nice V bottoms. That's really normal behavior. The last little signal given here from on-balance volume is bearish, so to expect price to continue down to support. ADX tells us there's a downward trend. It's not extreme, but RSI is reaching oversold now for Ethereum. If this is a pullback with an ongoing bull market, it's very likely to end here or very soon, because RSI tends to not reach oversold commonly within pullbacks and consolidations and bull runs. When that happens, it tends to be the end of those pullbacks or consolidations. So this is a little indication that yes, we may be finding a low for Ethereum here or very soon. Still the same two wave counts for XRP. I'm now going to see intermediate wave 2 continuing lower as per my short-term alternate for the weekly as a triple zigzag. My main Elliott Wave count has cycle 1, 2, cycle 3 in impulse with primary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I went over these targets in my last video. Primary 3 may only subdivide as an impulse. Intermediate 1, intermediate 2 down here. Here's intermediate 1 on the weekly. Intermediate 2 continuing lower as a triple zigzag. I had judged this to have a lower probability because triple zigzags have a lower probability of occurrence. This has a beautiful fit, but it's a less common structure than a double zigzag, and I had seen my main wave count saw XRP complete down here as a double zigzag, and that there is the problem of probability. You will see low probability outcomes occur. You will see lower probability Elliott wave structures unfold, and when that happens, it will never be what you expected was most likely. But what you need to do is use these low probability outcomes to manage your risk, and risk remains down here at 0.2794. If Z does continue lower, look out for it to find support at the lower edge of the channel, but this doesn't have very good technical significance. Technicals on the daily for XRP, it's developing a huge bullish long lower wick. If that's how the session for the 5th of July closes with a really bullish long lower wick, we'll have a very strong hammer candlestick pattern occurring about support at 0.40. There was this ascending triangle, there was a downward breakout, backtest of resistance, and a downward movement away. Yesterday, price closed below what was support at 0.46, and I said, okay, now you can use the target from the triangle. It's been met and passed, so the result from the triangle is now complete, and the low should be here or really soon for XRP. Volume for the very short term pushing price lower. For the mid-term, volume strongest on upward movement. ADX telling us there's a downward trend for the short term. RSI reaching into oversold again. The last time it did that, on the 13th of April, that was sustained for quite some time. RSI is at a lower point now, so there won't be any bullish divergence. But the last time it reached oversold, that did initiate a strong bounce. Let's see, it could be the end of this downward movement today for XRP. It looks like with that bullish long lower wick developing, that's most likely. Money flow is neutral. ATR's been flat for quite some time. Two Elliott Wave counts for Solana. The main Elliott Wave count considers a zigzag unfolding for primary wave 4. A, B, C, subdividing 5, 3, 5. Note that A here subdivides as a 5-wave impulse. I don't know why my data's gappy here. This is an import from Yahoo Finance. Jack's using better data from Cryptocompare. From this high to this low, this downward movement fits really, really well as a 5-wave impulse. And if that's correct as a 5, it means primary 4 can't be complete there. That's important because I'm seeing this in a different way on the alternate wave count. The difference is really important, and this is why this is the main wave count, because this downward movement has such a good look as a 5. Intermediate C needs to complete 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 may not move into wave 1 price territory, so it can't move above 161.26387. A new high by any amount at any time frame above that point would invalidate this wave count if it happens prior to a new low, and then we'd go with the alternate. This wave count needs intermediate C to move beyond the end of A, so it needs to move at or below the end of A, so it has to meet at 119.38481 or below by any amount in order to avoid a truncation. The bullish candlestick pattern here may close as a piercing pattern, and it's got a bullish long lower wick. We'll see how the session for the 5th of July closes, but it looks like the low may be found here. But if that's the case, then C hasn't moved beyond the end of A, and there'd be a little truncation. So for this wave count for Solana, I expect just one more low. The alternate idea, slightly adjusted now, considers a triangle for primary wave 4 that can't see a new low below 119.38481. But the problem here is from this high to this low, this wave count can't see it as a 5-wave impulse, because within a triangle, all of the subwaves must be zigzags or multiples. Only one of them can be a multiple. This is a double combination. It's a multiple, which is fitting triangle rules. It doesn't have a good fit, and it's trying to force what looks like, to me, an obvious 5 to see it as a corrective movement. So that reduces the probability of this wave count. So you've got A, B, C moved a little bit lower because this is now below this. So that's the end of C. We need D, and then we need E to complete. see if it continues any lower, may not move beyond the end of A below 119.38481. That would invalidate the triangle, and then this wave count would be absolutely discarded by any amount at any time frame below that point. Very quickly, technicals for Solana still finding support about 127, unable to close below that, moving above that today with push from volume. Volume pushing price higher for the 5th, that's bullish for Solana, doesn't fit the main Elliott Wave count, which expects one more low. ADX is declining, the DX lines are whipsawing, no clear trend for Solana. RSI neutral. Stochastics reached overbought, it's now moving lower, price is overall continuing lower. The model of stochastics plus support and resistance for a trendless market expects a bit more downward movement to continue to price find support, and stochastics reaches oversold simultaneously. And that's it from me for you this week. I hope everyone's looking forward to your good weekend, and Jack Frost will be here with you for Ethereum and Solana tomorrow.